The night a stranger called me pathetic in front of a room full of people, my daughter couldn't stop staring at a half-eaten chocolate croissant that wasn't hers. And that's the moment that split my life into before and after. Before, I was the woman who tried to handle everything alone, who still believed that if you just worked harder, people would treat you fairly. After that night, I was the homeless single mom in a cold car, trying to trust one last stranger with kind eyes. It was around 9 p.m., middle of winter, the kind of cold that makes your fingers hurt, even inside your gloves, and I had taken my little girl Ellie into this fancy bakery called Maple and Hearth, just to get out of the wind for a few minutes. Inside it smelled like cinnamon and butter, and warm sugar, all the things that used to mean comfort to me when life was normal, before my husband drained our accounts and vanished before the eviction, before sleeping in our car became home. We weren't there to buy anything. We both knew that I just needed to get Ellie's hands to stop shaking and her lips to stop turning that scary pale color, so I told her, "We'll just warm up a second, baby. Don't touch anything." And she nodded. But then her eyes locked on this chocolate croissant on a table nearby, half-eaten, shining under the lights, like it was a commercial. The little girl at that table wore a brand new sweater, cheeks, rosy hands, messy with chocolate, and Ellie hadn't had a real meal since the soup kitchen lunch earlier. Crackers, canned, peaches, nothing warm. So when I heard her swallow, I felt it in my own chest. The man behind the counter had been watching us since we walked in, stiff white apron, even stiffer expression, like he had a radar for people who didn't belong. When I tried to smile, he didn't smile back. He just asked, "Can I help you?" with this sharp tone, like we were already a problem, and I said quietly, "We're just trying to warm up for a moment. My daughter's cold, we won't be long." He snorted and said louder, "Yeah, this isn't a shelter," and two customers turned to look like he'd just announced a policy change instead of humiliating a mom. I froze, my cheeks burning, and tried again. "I understand, sir. We just need a few minutes. It's freezing outside," but he cut me off. I said, "This isn't a shelter. Buy something or get out. I'm not running a charity. People like you come in here all the time, taking up space, making customers uncomfortable. People like you, that one always hits deep, you know what I mean? Like your whole life got summed up in 3 cheap words." And I could feel Ellie press closer to my leg, her fingers tightening on my coat. I dropped to my knees, because pride is one thing, but your kid's safety is another. And I whispered, "Please, my daughter, just a few minutes." And he jabbed a finger at the door and barked out so loud, I flinched like he'd hit me. That's when I heard it, another voice, deep and calm, from across the room. "Is there a problem here?" And the whole bakery shifted, conversations faded. Everyone turned to see this man stand up from his table. His name, I would later learn, was Darius Johnson. But in that moment, I just saw a tall black man in a tailored coat, steady posture, a little girl peeking from behind him, and the owner rolled his eyes and said, "Mind your business." Darius ignored that and crouched next to Ellie, his voice gentle. "Hey there, you okay?" And she nodded, but her lip trembled, and then he stood up and asked the owner, "Is there a reason you're throwing out a mother and a cold child? Or are you just having a bad day?" And the owner folded his arms and said, "They can't pay. I'm not letting beggars loiter in here." At that word, beggars, my whole body felt like it was shrinking, and I whispered, "We're leaving, thank you. You don't need to get involved." But the owner kept going loud enough for everyone to hear. She begged me like some stray pathetic, and I swear everything in me just wanted to disappear. Darius's eyes went darker, not angry, like a scene just disappointed, and he said quietly, "You don't talk to people like that," and the owner snapped. "This is my establishment. You don't get to walk in here acting like a hero. Get out with them if you like," and took a step closer. like he was about to puff himself up. Then someone at a table whispered, not as quiet as they thought, "That's Darius Johnson, capital youngest black billionaire in the state." And another person chimed in, "He donated $2 million to County General last year." You remember the news, and you could see everything drain out of the owner's face. He stammered, "I didn't know, sir. I didn't realize. I didn't mean any disrespect." And Darius just gestured toward me and Ellie and said, "You disrespected them. You shouldn't need to know someone's net worth before deciding they deserve kindness." And the silence after that was thick enough to choke on. I wasn't used to anyone speaking up for me, not since my husband bailed and left me drowning in debt he created with my signature. Not since that mentor in a church program tried to make my future depend on what I'd give him in private. So while the owner sagged behind the counter, humiliated, I just grabbed Ellie's hand and said, "Come on, sweetheart," and I rushed us out the door. The wind hit like a slap, and Ellie stumbled after me, still looking back through the glass at the warmth we were running from. And when we reached the car, and the heater groaned to life with more noise than heat, I sat there with a lukewarm gas station coffee the clerk had pushed to me for free, and thought, this is it, this is how low we've fallen. See, we didn't land in that car overnight. My ex Mark brought home routine papers for our business, told me to sign so we could grow, and I trusted him like an idiot. Didn't read the fine print. Just believed my husband wouldn't set me on fire. And a month later, everything was gone. His name nowhere on the debt mine on all of it. Then came the calls, the letters, the eviction. My mother's disappointment, the church whispers, and finally that first night in the car with a 6-year-old curled against my chest while I pretended it was camping. After that, you learn quick that kindness usually comes with strings, the job program, where the director got way too comfortable, the charity lady who wanted to take my picture for a newsletter but couldn't remember my name, the social worker who told me I should have picked better men, like that was helpful advice. So by the time Darius showed up at that bakery, my brain had already filed any rich guy with opinions into the danger folder. Still, that man stuck with me the way he stood there, calm, steady, no performance, no, let me fix everything, just refusing to let someone grind us into dust in front of a room full of witnesses. And later that night in the car, I kept seeing his face in the reflection of the bakery windows and hating how much hope that stirred up. A few days passed, we hit the library like we always did, because it was warm and free, and Ellie could disappear into picture books while I tried not to spiral. The librarian Marlene knew us by name and treated us like normal patrons, not like charity cases, and that alone felt like a miracle. I was just starting to relax when I heard that voice again at the front desk, Darius talking to Marlene about some nonprofit he funded, and my stomach dropped like the universe was playing some weird joke. I tried to keep my head down, but he saw us. Of course he did. And a while later, he walked over with hot chocolates and a bag of muffins, moving slow like you'd approach a skittish animal. "Hi again," he said. "I brought these for you and your daughter." No lecture attached, and something in me snapped. "No," I said, standing so fast I knocked my chair a little. "Please don't bring us anything." He blinked, surprised. "It's just hot chocolate," he said gently, and I laughed, this ugly, tired laugh, and said, "Every time someone helps, they want something, a favor, loyalty, silence. And I don't have anything left to give, so please don't start this." His chest rose and fell, and he nodded once, stepping back. "Okay, if that's what you want, I'll respect it," he said, and he took the drinks back to the cafe and gave them to someone else, and I sat there shaking, wondering if I'd just turned away the last good thing coming toward us. That would have been the end of it, if Ellie's cough hadn't turned into something that made my blood run cold. One morning she woke up hot and clammy with this deep, wet cough that rattled in her small chest, and I recognized that sound from other moms in free clinics, The ones who came in late because they had no insurance and no car, and I knew we were right on the edge of something. I managed to get her to a clinic once the nurse slid us in through a side door. Out of pity, they gave us sample meds and said, "Rest warmth fluids," like those were items you could pick up on sale. But we went right back to that freezing car, the one the cops kept threatening to tow. That night, listening to her breathing get rougher while frost crept up the inside of the windows, I pulled out the crumpled receipt with that number on it, D. Johnson, neat handwriting, an offer I'd shoved away more than once. I stared at it so long the ink blurred my thumb, hovering over the call button, while my pride screamed not to do it. And then Ellie coughed so hard she threw up her little face, twisting in pain, and pride shut its mouth. I called. He picked up on the second ring, voice calm. "This is Darius," and all that came out of me was, "It's Rachel from the bakery. My daughter's sick. I don't know what to do. I don't have gas. I don't have money. Please do not turn this into a show. I can't be someone's project again. But I think she needs help." There was this tiny pause, and then his voice changed, all focus, no panic. "Where are you?" he asked. I told him the gas station by the overpass, blue sedan with fogged windows. And he said, "I'm coming. No police, no cameras. Just me. Keep her as warm as you can." He showed up fast, sliding into the back seat with an emergency blanket and a small medical kit, checking her breathing. Her forehead listening with a stethoscope like it was the most normal thing in the world to crawl into a stranger's car at night. "She needs antibiotics and actual rest, not this," he said, glancing around the car. "I know a clinic that won't turn you away, and I have a spare room doors that don't lock from the outside. You and your daughter can stay there tonight." Everything in me wanted to say no, wanted to crawl back into our familiar misery, because at least I knew the rules there, but I looked at Ellie, skin too hot, eyes glassy, and I heard myself whisper, "Just tonight." "Just tonight," he repeated, and he meant it. From there, everything slowly shifted. The clinic was warm, the doctor kind, but direct bronchitis medicine, careful instructions, and not once did anyone make me feel small for bringing my child in late. They just helped. At Darius's real home, not the high-rise he used for work events, but an old house that felt lived in. He set up the guest room with fresh sheets and extra blankets, put cocoa on the stove, and then gave me space, no hovering. "No. You owe me now, just if you need anything, I'm down the hall." It was the first night in months that my shoulders weren't clenched while I slept. In the morning over coffee at his kitchen table, we actually talked, not in that fake "what do you do" way, but real talk about how I got here, about Mark's papers and the job programs that went sideways, about how tired I was of being seen as a problem instead of a person. And for the first time in a long time, I felt like someone was listening without secretly writing a bill in the back of their mind. Then came the twist I didn't see coming, the part I still think about, when people say it's just bad choices. A few days into staying there while Ellie recovered, and I started working mornings at a family-owned bakery his friend Loretta ran, Darius put a folder on the table and said, "I did some digging into what happened with your apartment. I need you to see this." Inside were copies of documents I'd signed, fine print highlighted city complaints, other tenants' names, patterns of renovation evictions that magically never became real renovations. A developer had been using the same trick on lots of people like me, pushing them out with technicalities, cashing in on their desperation. "You didn't just mess up, Rachel," he said quietly. "You were targeted." At first I was furious, feeling exposed, like my worst days were laid out in a file, and I snapped, "Why would you go through my life like this?" And he didn't even flinch, just shook his head and said, "I went through his, not yours. You don't have to do anything with this, but you deserve to know the truth." That folder became the second big line in my story. I could have thrown it away, focused on my new job rolling biscuits and learning how to make the perfect croissant under Loretta's tough love pretended the past was over. But every time I looked at Ellie sleeping under a real roof, I thought about the other kids still in cars, because their moms didn't have a billionaire wander into their worst night. So when some of those other tenants agreed to meet, and a community forum got scheduled, I showed up at hands shaking, heart pounding, and when they called my name, I stood at a podium in a crowded room and told the truth about Mark, about the landlord, about sleeping in the car behind the post office, about the bakery humiliation, and the night I finally made that call. I watched council members shift in their seats. I watched neighbors realize this wasn't just those people on the news. It was someone who looked like their sister, their cousin themselves. That video went everywhere, local feeds, then bigger ones, headlines about single mother stands up to predatory landlord, and suddenly the city had to take action. It had been considering for years. New protections, investigations, real consequences for the man who'd treated our homes like poker chips. Through it all, Darius stayed in the background, never trying to be the star of the story. Just steady watching my kid when I had meetings introducing me to people, quietly telling anyone who tried to put him front and center, no, she's the one doing the hard part. These days, life looks different. I still wake up at 4 a.m. some mornings to get to the bakery, still budget. Every dollar still feel a sting of panic when an unknown number calls because trauma doesn't vanish. Just because your address changes, but now Ellie has a bed instead of the back seat. A school that knows her name and a second family in Darius and his daughter Chloe, who treat her like a little sister. I have work. I'm proud of a community that doesn't look away when someone falls, and a voice that people somehow listen to now when we talk about housing and dignity. And here's the part where I turn it back to you because I really do want to know what you think. If you had walked into Maple and Hearth that night and seen a mom on her knees begging for 5 more minutes of warmth for her kid, would you have spoken up like Darius did? Or would you have looked down at your coffee and told yourself, "It's not my business"? Do you think the owner was just protecting his business? Or did he cross a line you can't uncross once you see it? When you see families sleeping in cars, people getting thrown out of places like they're trash, do you automatically assume they're lazy or irresponsible? Or do you ever stop and wonder what paperwork they signed? What betrayals happened? How many times they tried before they ended up there? I've been called a victim, a fighter, a charity case, a hero. All of it sometimes in the same week. But the truth is, I'm just someone who fell hard and had one person refuse to look away, and then I decided not to stay quiet about it. So tell me in the comments, where do you think the blame really sits in a story like this? On the mom who trusted the wrong man and missed the fine print on the landlord, who knew exactly what he was doing, on a system that listens only when a billionaire repeats your story for you. And if you've ever been judged on your worst moment, or watched someone else get thrown out into the cold, share it, argue with me, call me out. If you think I handled something wrong, because as messy as it is, that's how we figure out what justice should actually look like in real life, not just in headlines.